Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and coming up today, PAC is back in AEW, but could he soon be joined by Shaq? That rhymes. We're going to find out.
Plus a major unmasking on NXT, and quite possibly the most shocking NXT title change ever! This is the news.
That was probably the worst introduction I've ever done, and think of the ground that covers. But we're going to kick things off by talking about PAC, who returned on last night's episode of AEW Dynamite right at the very end, and he returned in the expected storyline. Last week we had the vignette. He was cutting a promo from his home in Newcastle. Lads, I see everything was of course the sign off on that promo, and it was bookended by clips of Eddie Kingston saying, "Where's your little British friend?" after effectively taking 2/3 of Death Triangle away from PAC with the family. So PAC comes out after Penta El Zero M versus Rey Fenix at the end of the show. Pentagon beat Phoenix. Eddie Kingston, who'd been leaning heavily into "You're my best friend, Penta," Phoenix, not so much on the commentary. The whole thing literally kind of boots Phoenix out of the ring, tells Penta that he doesn't need his brother, he doesn't need the dead weight. That's when PAC's music hits. He comes down, cuts a very short promo on Eddie Kingston, basically says, "You made an enemy in me, brother, you made a big mistake." But before they can really throw hands at each other, before they can get into it, an army of officials come down and separate them, preventing that kind of gratification. But it was announced during all of this that PAC is going to face The Blade next week on Dynamite, which is, of course, branching off from the family story. So this is, I actually recorded a video on this and it was uploaded yesterday to the channel. Myself and Michael Sidgwick, collaboration, talking about how PAC should come back and all this stuff. And hey man, listen, if this wasn't a well-booked company, I'd accuse them of stealing our stuff, because our idea was very similar. I'm only joking, of course. But this was always how it was going to go down. There are so many possibilities with this. You can have Phoenix turn babyface and join forces with PAC. You can do PAC versus Kingston. You can do a variety of tag matches. You could reform Death Triangle if you want at some point in all of this. It's the kind of thing that just has so many little branches. You could feasibly be doing this for months and months when you incorporate the Butcher and the Blade, Penta, Phoenix, PAC, Eddie Kingston. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out, and great to have the Bastard back in AEW.
Yeah, a couple of things to start off with. Like you say, fantastic to see PAC back in the ring in AEW rather than just filming stuff around here. And also, on a little work note, isn't it so good when stuff like that happens, when you're like, oh bollocks, I've got a video about this, it better have come out. And thankfully it did yesterday. It's well worth checking out though regardless, as well as Andy's video on how to fix AEW's biggest problem. I think well worth watching that too. But yeah, great to see him back, and what a war this is going to be. Like you say, so many different characters involved in it. The central figures, PAC versus Eddie Kingston, is going to be just a bloodbath. I was kind of gutted that they didn't get to throw hands yesterday, but it was sort of explained by the fact that Eddie Kingston obviously isn't medically cleared to wrestle off the back of that I Quit match with Moxley at Full Gear on Saturday. And I wouldn't want to be the Blade right now, coming off the back of that, again, bloodbath that he and the Butcher had with QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes last night. What was it called? The
Bunkhouse Brawl.
Bunkhouse.
Really nice to see QT Marshall paying a tribute to the best Bunkhouse Brawl of all time, Spring Stampede 94, Dustin Rhodes, Bunkhouse Buck. You should watch that if you enjoyed last night's match. That's a recommendation to you, dear viewers. WCW Spring Stampede 94. But last night's was really good as well.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And yeah, like I say, most importantly, let's get Murder Tripod back together. Let's have just this fantastic story come to a conclusion. And again, PAC is making chicken salad out of chicken. He was, for the second time this year, or since his time in AEW, he has been out of the company, not through his own decisions, but because of just extraneous circumstances, and he's come back red hot. I think it's going to be brilliant. Right, let's move over and talk a little bit about what happened on last night's NXT, because there was 3 championship matches on last night's NXT. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to know what happened, skip ahead about 3 minutes or so. The only title change that happened was the NXT North American Championship. Johnny Gargano's curse continues. Every time he defends the championship he's just won, he loses it. 3rd one in a row this. He had a wheel. Of course, Johnny Gargano loves wheels. He was a little bit loaded because instead of facing all the spectacular stars they've got on the roster, he faced Leon Ruff. the Evolve guy, who's quite small. And, well, he clearly thought, well, this is going to be a piece of piss, except he did manage to distract himself with former North American champion Damian Priest, who was ringside, and just got far too carried away and cocky. In the end, Leon Ruff nailed Gargano with a crucifix bomb. 1, 2, 3. Leon Ruff, stunningly, in one of the most shocking NXT title changes ever, as I said, is the new NXT North American champion. And the belt literally doesn't fit round his waist, Andy.
That was a great touch. Damian Priest putting the belt around him, and he's too small for it to. That was like just a really great piece of imagery, and the kind we don't often get from mainline WWE programming. So that, like, this whole deal was excellent. Look, I could gladly never see another distraction finish in all of my life, but the core booking of this is just tremendous stuff. Johnny Gargano grossly overestimates this guy. He loads the wheel so that it deliberately lands on Leon Ruff. He thinks it's a given. He thinks he's just going to breeze past this guy, and he eats crap as a direct result of him being just an overconfident asshole. It's a really great way to book this kind of obnoxious prick mid-card version of Johnny Gargano. He's been killing it lately, man. They found just a really great, consistent role for him. This is so in character. It is, I mean, it's literally perfect booking. It's really great stuff. And hey, man, look, Leon Ruff, fair play to him. He only came into the company earlier this year because of the bloody ongoing global bastard. Now, he's killing it. Good for him as well, man.
And speaking of championship matches, whilst we're talking about this, confirmed for next week, Io Shirai versus Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship. So excited for that.
Very nice indeed. Speaking of big stuff, Shaquille O'Neal, is he coming to AEW? Possibly. So he was backstage at Full Gear. We learned that on this week's episode of Being the Elite. There was footage of that there. He has also recently posed for photographs at the Nightmare Factory with Anthony Ogogo. So there's been little bits and pieces peppered all over the place. But last night there was a segment, Cody coming out, talking about what happened at Full Gear, talking about wanting to maybe face MJF again, but he was interrupted by the debuting Jade Cargill, who confronted Cody a little bit, ribbed him a little bit, which was fun. Said, you call yourself the Giant Killer, but I've got the real Giant here, and congratulations on getting your last name back. Maybe you were too afraid to just go by one name. I got a guy who isn't afraid to go just by a single name, Shaq. Brandy Rhodes came out and spat just fire at poor Jade Cargill. It was a great promo, but Cargill just kind of laughed it off. She didn't absorb it, she didn't sell it. She laughed it off, she patted Brandy, walked away, fired that up. She won the segment overall. So it looks very much like Shaquille O'Neal is heading to AEW. He's appeared in WWE before, of course. Lots of different things with the Big Show. There was a WrestleMania match that was hinted at several times and fell through several times. But, Shaq loves wrestling. So I guess we're going to see the big man on AEW television before long.
Well, let's hope, a bit like the Big Show, this inspires Cody to actually get in shape to face Shaq. I'm joking, of course. This is just bonkers, innit? I saw that last night and went, sorry, Shaq? What's going on? I have no idea how to feel about this. This has obviously been very divisive online. I think the one saving grace, and this is something I saw Michael Sidgwick tweeting about, is the fact that there is a plan here. This isn't just, we'll get a celebrity in for the sake of getting a celebrity in. And, considering AEW's track record, the phrase that we always talk about is trusting the process. I mean, I'm really not sure about this. This is probably one of the most, I'm not sure this is a good idea things I've ever had when it comes to AEW. But, I mean, it's going to get a lot of mainstream attention, and I suppose if they do it right, you could make not only a really intriguing, exciting crossover storyline involving Shaq, but you've already started to make a star out of someone like Jade Cargill, as you mentioned there, Andy.
Yeah, it was a good spotlight for Jade Cargill. I think I like to analyse things like this with my business hat on. So if we get a Shaq match, it might not be the best piece of pro wrestling you've ever seen. But Shaq's a major celebrity, man, and if he pops a number on Dynamite here and there, it'll be justified for me.
Speaking of popping a number on Dynamite, what do you reckon to them booking Omega versus Moxley for the start of December on TV rather than on pay-per-view?
I think it was inevitable from the moment they announced the World Title Tournament that the winner was going to face on TV. I think 3 months is a long time to build to an announced match, so I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed it's not going down at Revolution, but like you say, I can understand why they are doing it to try and pop a rate. Well, they will pop a rating. Let's be perfectly honest with that. A world title match with almost definitely a title change. You sense, Andy?
I feel it's coming.
Right, anyway, let's wrap up with what happened on last night's episode of NXT when it comes to the Scream character. You've seen him getting involved in all the stuff at Halloween Havoc. And finally, it was unmasked. I always forget what they're called. Is it Scary Face? Whatever it's bloody called. The Scream
Tony
character.
Bone. Ghostface.
Ghostface, thank you. I always forget that. It was unveiled. Surprise, surprise. It was, of course, Indy Hartwell who's been helping the Gargano family, the one who sent him the TV and stuff like that, and Johnny Gargano suddenly changed his mind on. She was unmasked after Candice LeRae defeated Toni Storm, again, because Candice LeRae had her feet on the ropes for a pinfall. She was unmasked. She came down. She brawled with Toni Storm, helping out Candice LeRae. She also brawled with Shotzi Blackheart, who was very pissed off about them running over her tank last week. But, I mean, it's the obvious thing. It's what everyone thought it was going to be. But in this instance, Andy, I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah, good for Indy Hartwell. Big opportunity for her, working alongside two of the most recognised names in the company. Let's see where it goes.
Indeed. Right, Andy, I must ask you a question. We must move on to our Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE, of course. First question today comes from Big Joe83, who says, "Hi guys, looking forward to Survivor Series, but do you think they should add a stipulation to the multi-man matches, like any survivors are able to have a title opportunity of their choice on their own brand?"
Yeah, I think that'd be a cool way to add stakes to these matches beyond the usual brand warfare thing. Brand warfare is kind of a contrived thing that we talk about every single year when it becomes t-shirt time all of a sudden and, so forth. So yes, I think that is a good idea because the whole thing is forgotten about a couple of weeks later. It's like, hey, we won. Oh, okay, let's move on. It doesn't really have any lasting impact. So I think that's a good idea. Say if you end up with 2 guys or girls on the winning team and they get title shots, you could then have a singles match on the next show to determine who gets the title shots. There's a lot you could do with that. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, great idea that. All right, second question today comes from Thomas Gervan, who says, "Is an AEW pay-per-view now higher on the wish list than WrestleMania for the WhatCulture crew for the next big UK wrestling show post-Global Bastard?"
That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. So before I went to WrestleMania, which was the first time was last year with work and stuff, I would have said no because WrestleMania is the bucket list item, right? And I'm not saying that an AEW pay-per-view in the UK would be a bigger deal than WrestleMania because WrestleMania is WrestleMania. It's this huge cross-cultural event. But personally, because I've been to a WrestleMania show and I've not been to an AEW show, I would probably be a little bit more excited about going to the AEW pay-per-view. Now, they would be bigger. Now, they would be more, extravagant or over the top or a bigger deal or anything like that. It's just, once you've experienced something the first time, it doesn't quite have the same appeal the second. So, probably an AEW show in the UK.
Yeah, I think we're way off seeing WrestleMania here in the UK. And considering, was it Fyter Fest they were meant to have in the UK this year?
Yes, it was.
I mean, obviously, I'd love to have a big WhatCulture group expedition down to presumably London, let's say, to watch an AEW show. But speaking as someone who's been very lucky enough to been to both a WrestleMania and an AEW show, love to go to both again. I think if the option was there, I'd rather go to another AEW show than, say, SummerSlam. But my bucket list, top of my bucket list right now is the Royal Rumble, without a question. That's still something I'd love
100%.
to do. But I think the likelihood is we're going to get an AEW show here in the UK far sooner than we're going to get WrestleMania or even a WWE pay-per-view.
Definitely.
Final question today comes from Focused Yeehaw Man on Twitter, who says, "Morning, lads. Assuming that Jimmy joins Jay with Roman, could you see a returning Samoa Joe get involved in the faction? Would he join them or oppose? Also, here's Zeus, who likes snow. Good dog, Zeus."
Very, very good. Yeah, why not? Why not throw Samoa Joe into the mix? Joe's a really interesting prospect at the moment because he's stuck in an announce booth on Raw and stuff, and kind of sucks for him. But he does a really good job as a commentator, obviously. I mean, any way that you can use Samoa Joe as a badass killer, I'm all for.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were thinking of making the joke of a Samoan called Joe versus Samoa Joe, yeah, we know what wrestling is. Right, let's move on to today's and finally. And RIP to WWE's The Bump, who stupidly thought it was a good idea to ask the question, what would you name the team of Lacey Evans and Peyton Royce? And Peyton Bloody Royce quite rightly replied, we are not a team. I will only be in a tag team if it's with Billy Kay. That's it. The end. I am dead serious. Why did WWE split them up? And why on earth did anyone think, oh, this is a good idea? Look at these two, they don't get along. We've got enough bloody stupid odd couple tag teams. What do you reckon, Andy?
I think that this is very bad storytelling. And that's my take on the matter.
I think you're exactly right there, Andy. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts, including myself and the Dudley Boys, reviewing the Wednesday Night War later on today. Plus, just let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Happy Birthday Disco Inferno, a man who once referred to our Mike Chioda song as, what was it? Stupid nerd rapping or something like that. Why we gotta be like that, Disco? Come on, give us a hug, man. Give us a hug. Come in.
He's not wrong, to be fair.
No, he's
Follow
not.
me on Twitter at Adam Wilmore. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks, Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.